Hello and welcome back to yet another installment of Really Old News. Today we'll be covering the discovery of a unique late Roman mosaic in England, the remains of a sacred altar hidden by the Aztecs from the Spanish, and a Roman necropolis found under a supermarket in northeastern France. But first, remember to like and subscribe if you want to see more content just like this. A large, elaborate Roman villa in use during the 3rd and 4th centuries AD, as well as a 36-foot by 23-foot mosaic depicting scenes from Homer's Iliad, has just been uncovered under a farmer's field in England's Rutland County. The site was identified by a man named Jim Irvine, the son of the landowner, farmer Brian Naylor, after some archaeological material was disturbed by plowing back in 2020. Mr. Irvine spotted some unusual pottery while taking a walk, and Leicestershire's County Council was promptly notified of the discovery. The site was first examined by archaeologists from University of Leicester Archaeological Services, also abbreviated as ULAS, this September, and what they discovered was truly outstanding. An 11-meter by 7-meter, or 36-foot by 23-foot mosaic depicting two key scenes from the Iliad, one in which the Trojan hero Hector's body is being dragged behind the chariot of the nearly invulnerable Greek hero Achilles, and one set immediately prior to that where they're both shown dueling on chariots. Well, I guess we know who won that. It's really interesting to see how these late Romans, living close to the northernmost point in the empire, depicted legendary characters whose lives are set in late Bronze Age Greece and Asia Minor, 1500 years earlier. This is the first depiction of these scenes from the Iliad to be found in Britain, and the mosaic's existence suggests that the person who commissioned it was very familiar with classical literature and thus helps illuminate the attitudes of Roman Britain's populace towards classical literature. John Thomas, Deputy Director of the University of Leicester Archaeological Services, has dubbed it the most exciting Roman mosaic discovery in the UK in the last century. And the media has been reusing that quote over and over again, so it's basically become part of the story at this point, so I decided to include it. But that isn't all they found, because the mosaic just comprised the floor of the dining area of the large villa it was a part of. Several supporting buildings have also been detected, which are likely barns and a bathhouse. Various unidentified circular buildings and boundary ditches have also been found. It's a very well-preserved villa in that, unlike many other villas, it survives in its entirety. But the site has been backfilled in order to protect it, as surprising as that sounds, and excavations at the site will continue in 2022. Luckily, the land it's under will be converted into sustainable grassland and pasture, but given that the land is privately owned, it understandably will not be accessible to the general public, but an off-site public display is in the works. Our next story, an Aztec altar in use after the Spanish conquered the Aztec Empire, has just been discovered under Mexico City, formerly the Aztec capital Tenochtitlan. The altar was found lying 13 feet below the present-day surface of the city near Plaza Garibaldi in the heart of the historic city in what was once the Tezcatlipoca neighborhood of Tenochtitlan. It was excavated by archaeologists working for the National Institute of Anthropology and History, also abbreviated as INAH. It was once nestled in a courtyard within a private dwelling, the rooms of which still retain their stucco walls and floors, including a kitchen that featured a massive fire pit so large it extends under a neighboring property and hasn't been fully excavated. The house was occupied at 2 points, in the late post-classic period, which extends from 1200 to the Spanish conquest in 1521, and between 1521 and 1610, after the Spanish had conquered Tenochtitlan. As such, the altar found indicates that the denizens of this house may have been secretly practicing their traditional polytheistic religion behind closed doors. The altar featured 13 giant colored incense burners, 5 ceramic bowls, 1 plate, and even more interestingly, a pot holding cremated human remains. The very number of incense burners found may have been symbolic, given that the Aztecs believed there were 13 levels to the sky. In addition, given that they were placed on 2 separate levels and some pointed north-south while others pointed east-west, they may have been symbolic of the 20 13-day periods which made up the Aztecs' ritual calendar. Incense burners feature open-work depictions of crosses meant to represent the Earth's axis between the celestial poles, in addition to colored, hollowed handles that end in the heads of water snakes, symbolic of the agents of the underworld. I find this particular story especially powerful because it reveals something so intimate about the lives of people whose names we'll never know, as well as the actual corporeal body of one of them. On to the next story. A large necropolis, i.e. cemetery, dating to the late Roman period, i.e. the 4th to 5th century CE, has just been unearthed beneath something you don't usually associate with ancient cemeteries, a supermarket in northern France. Imagine being a regular customer there and realizing that all this time you've been getting your milk right above a Roman corpse. The necropolis was first discovered in July of 2020 when an archaeological survey was conducted where the supermarket planned an extension and a 4th century lead coffin was stumbled upon. But it was only this fall that it was realized during excavations that the necropolis itself extends beneath the floor of the supermarket, and in another direction, the necropolis extends under a neighboring property. The excavations were conducted by INRAP, the French National Institute for Preventative Archaeological Research. This specific supermarket is located in the city of Arras in northeastern France, close to the border with Belgium. But of course, that border didn't exist 1700 years ago when Arras was the Roman city of Nenetacum, whose name was changed to Atrebatum after the Belgic tribe that once lived there in the 4th century, during the lifetimes of the people buried in the necropolis that's just been discovered. Also, during the lifetimes of these people, Arras hosted a large castrum, or fortress, a thriving textile industry, and was even evangelized by Saint Martin of Tours. Arras also shrunk back to its walls in the same century because of the threat posed by barbarians on the nearby Rhine frontier, but that unfortunately did not stop it getting sacked multiple times during the collapse of the Western Roman Empire. So what about the burials themselves? Well, they're oriented towards the northeast and southwest and are relatively densely packed together. The burials are also strangely lacking in grave goods, the only exceptions being 2 graves, one of which contained the remains of a woman adorned with a fine selection of jewelry. This included a pear necklace, bangles made of copper and bone, earrings, and copper rings. Almost every burial held only one individual, with the exception of only one, which rather sadly contained an adult and a child. They also mostly used wooden coffins, which have disintegrated, but which are evidenced by iron nails and metal brackets left behind. However, a single lead coffin, similar in date to the one discovered when the necropolis was first found, was also unearthed, and right next to that, a limestone sarcophagus was discovered with its lid still firmly on. When it was inevitably opened, it was found that, amazingly, nothing, not even dirt, had penetrated it. Its only occupant was the skeletal remains of a woman. I just gotta say, it's pretty amazing to me that in a way we can sort of meet the generations of people who actually experienced the events we know occurred in Arras when they were alive, all the way back in the 4th century. Anyways, thank you so much for watching, and make sure to subscribe to my second channel if you want content that's not exactly the same as this, but pretty similar, and which I think you'd all enjoy. The link is in the description. Remember to like and subscribe.